who had been hiding there after a confused encounter with the crew, tumbled out in a swimsuit. Binghamton pointed a trembling finger. "There, look, evidence." Rafferty stared at the nurse, then at Binghamton, who was now wearing a seaman's uniform he had stolen in an attempt to sneak out earlier. "Binghamton," Rafferty growled, "why are you running around in a seaman's uniform shouting about girls? You're a mess. McHale, take this man back to bed. He's clearly suffered a mental breakdown." "Yes, sir." McHale grinned. "Easy does it, Captain. Just a nice long rest." Chapter 4. The Sultan and the Princesses. Life never stayed quiet on Teratupa. A week after the Rafferty fiasco, a new guest was scheduled, the Sultan of Marami. "The Sultan and his 3 daughters are arriving," Binghamton announced, his eyebrows now mostly grown back after a freak accident involving a cigar. "The Admiral wants us to make an impression. 100% order." McHale and the crew of the 73 were sent to rescue the Sultan after his plane made a forced landing near an island. When they arrived, they found a majestic man in robes and 3 beautiful princesses. "Wowie, wow, wow," Gruber whispered. "I heard that," the Sultan barked. "The next man who debases the dignity of my daughters will answer to me." The crew behaved, mostly, but on the ride back, McHale let the Sultan steer the PT-73. The Sultan loved it. He loved the power, the speed, and the way Parker screamed every time the boat took a sharp turn. Back at the base, Binghamton tried to play the perfect host, but the Sultan only had eyes for McHale's efficiency. Jealousy, as usual, drove Binghamton to madness. He invited the Sultan to a grand dinner, determined to keep McHale away. But the crew had other plans. Parker had managed to snag a date with Princess Siri. To keep the date, he and the crew borrowed the 73 for a moonlit cruise. The dinner with Binghamton was a disaster. The Sultan kept asking for the boatman. To stall, McHale and the crew had to perform a native dance. Parker, dressed as a princess in a desperate attempt to cover for the missing Siri, ended up dancing in front of the Sultan. When Binghamton realized one of the princesses was actually Parker in a wig and a grass skirt, he lost what was left of his mind. "You phony Balinese bunny," Binghamton screamed, ripping off Parker's wig. The Sultan stood up, outraged. "You dare lay hands on my daughter? Infidel, I will raid your Washington." "Sir, he's not your daughter. He's a bumbling ensign," Binghamton cried. But the Sultan didn't care. He swept out of the room, leaving Binghamton to face the wrath of the State Department. Chapter 5. The Trial of Sidney the Alligator. It started with a lost wallet, specifically Binghamton's wallet, containing 9 brand-new $100 bills, which actually belonged to Carpenter. "I've trapped him," Binghamton cackled. "I dropped the wallet where McHale's pirates would find it. They'll swipe the cash, and I'll have them for grand larceny." But the pirates didn't find it. Sidney did. Sidney was a friendly, 300-pound alligator the crew had adopted as a mascot. Sidney liked 2 things: peanut butter sandwiches and shiny leather objects. When McHale found Sidney in his shack chewing on Binghamton's ID card, he knew they were in trouble. Sidney ate the captain. Parker shrieked, seeing the ID card. Binghamton arrived, foaming at the mouth. "I've got you. Theft of $900. Where's the money, McHale?" "The alligator has it, sir," McHale said calmly. "An alligator? Code name for McHale, I suppose. Take them away. Court-martial." The trial was the talk of the Pacific. Parker acted as his own defense attorney. "I object, sir." "You can't call Sidney stupid. He had an unhappy childhood." The courtroom was in chaos. Binghamton was screaming. The judge was pounding his gavel, and then McHale led Sidney into the courtroom. "Exhibit A," McHale announced. Sidney waddled to the center of the room, with a gentle nudge from a peanut butter sandwich. The alligator opened his mouth and spat out a soggy leather wallet. "That's not my wallet," Binghamton Leet. It has your initials, sir, McHale pointed out. WB. And look, the bills are marked. Carpenter's back pay. The judge stared at the soggy evidence. Captain Binghamton, did you attempt to frame your own officers using a marked payroll and a predatory reptile? It was a trap, a brilliant trap. Binghamton wailed. Case dismissed, the judge ruled. And someone get that alligator sandwich. Chapter 6. The Ghost of PT-13. Binghamton's final attempt to rid himself of McHale involved a jinxed boat. He convinced the crew that the PT-73 was actually the cursed PT-13, a boat that had supposedly lost 3 crews to mysterious circumstances. She's a Jonah, Gruber cried, reading a fake report Binghamton had leaked. The crew was terrified. They saw a ghost in the rigging. They heard phantom voices. Binghamton was winning. He even managed to get the crew to sign transfer papers to get off the haunted vessel. But McHale realized the trick. All right, boys, if he wants ghosts, we'll give him ghosts. That night, Binghamton was celebrating in his office. Suddenly, the lights flickered. A low, moaning sound filled the air. Ho, ho, ho. Who's there? Binghamton stammered, clutching his rear admiral dreams. 7 figures draped in white sheets, glowing with eerie phosphorescent paint, floated into the room. We are the ghosts of PT-13. McHale's voice echoed, sounding like it was coming from a tomb. We've come for the transfers, Wally. Take them, take them. Binghamton screamed, throwing the papers at the ghosts. Just don't take me. The ghosts vanished with the papers. The next morning, McHale and the crew were back on the 73, looking healthy and very much alive. Good morning, Captain. McHale chirped as a pale, sleep-deprived Binghamton walked onto the dock. Beautiful day for a cruise, isn't it? Binghamton just stared at them, his eye twitching. I want to go home, Carpenter. I want to go to a place where there are no boats, no alligators, and no McHale. Chapter 7. The New Caledonia Payroll Heist. The grand finale of the Terratupa Chronicles took place in the bustling streets of New Caledonia. McHale and the crew had been sent to pick up the base payroll, $62,000 in cash. Don't lose it, Parker, McHale warned. Naturally, Parker lost it. He was knocked out by a mysterious figure and woke up with nothing but a memory of a girl's ankle. She had a birthmark. Parker cried. A little brown heart on her right ankle. The crew went on a frantic search through New Caledonia, lifting the skirts of every table and checking the ankles of every passing lady. It was an international incident waiting to happen. Binghamton, who had followed them to New Caledonia to catch them in the act of stealing the money, was hot on their heels. I've got them, Carpenter. They've absconded with the payroll. The chase led to a French cafe, where the crew spotted a man in a gray suit carrying the payroll bag. A chase ensued through the narrow alleys, involving bicycles, flower carts, and a very confused gendarme. The man in the gray suit ducked into an old fort. McHale and the crew followed. Binghamton and Carpenter arrived just as the thieves were trying to escape through a hole in the wall. Halt! Binghamton shouted, brandishing his swagger stick like a sword. The thieves turned, drawing guns. Get down, Captain! McHale shouted. Parker, in a moment of accidental heroism, spotted an old decorative cannon. He didn't have cannonballs, but he had something better. He shoved a bag of laundry and a heavy bottle of champagne into the barrel. Fire! Boom! The laundry bag exploded out of the cannon, hitting the thieves with the force of a wet mattress. The champagne bottle shattered, drenching them in bubbles and glass. As the thieves lay stunned, the payroll bag split open. Bills began to rain down from the sky, like green snow. Manna from heaven. Gruber shouted, catching a 20. That's not manna, that's the payroll. Binghamton screamed, trying to catch the bills in his hat. When the dust settled,